Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here at TigerTank12, however you call me, I don't really care, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Today we're going to try to make a review of the STG Guard, and hopefully it's not going to be too long because I've listened to your criticism. I've seen that the very long introduction and the talk about the vehicle is usually maybe a bit too extensive, and I'm gonna see if I can counter that a little bit by shortening it and by also putting some kind of chapters in it so you can skip ahead if you're not interested in any kind of that specific talk in the beginning. So, the STG Guard is a Tier 8 Soviet premium medium tank that they introduced a couple of years ago, and I didn't really notice that they patched it, but they actually gave this tank a buff. I think this patch around, and I didn't really think it needed a buff, but it's still nice to see this vehicle to get a little bit of additional love because I really enjoyed this tank. So you get a 122mm gun which has 390 alpha. You have a pretty decent rate of fire for a gun of this caliber on a medium tank. 5.47 rounds per minute. I think you can work with that quite nicely, and if you want to add some, you don't want to have a better rate of fire, you can obviously add some more equipment on that to make it even better to have a higher rate of fire. The gun traverse speed, or the turret traverse speed, on the other hand, is a bit lacking. 37.33 degrees per second is not something that you can find on the top medium premium tanks. Some of them have, I think, over 50 degrees per second, so that's quite a let off, 37. But you have to notice, or you have to, keep in mind that this is supposed to be kind of a supportive sniping tank, as at least Wargaming wants it to be. And you can see that with the aim time and the dispersion stats. The gun depression of 6 degrees for a tank of this stature with a rear mounted turret, I think it's decent enough, 6 degrees. Obviously you're not going to be going towards any kind of a ridgeline fight with this vehicle. I hope you're not doing that because it's not going to be working out in your favor. But still, the aim time and the dispersion and the DPM kind of point you towards a direction where this tank can be quite good at medium to longer distances. And I think that's exactly where this tank probably shines the most. Now, added with that, we have 1,350 hit points, 100mm of frontal armor, and 45 on the side and on the rear. The turret is quite nicely armored with 210mm on the front, 180 on the side, and 45 on the rear. What is really interesting about this tank is that it has basically no profile. It's a very, very small tank in the fact that it has a very small kind of profile and small stature. The 100mm armor at the front are also very interesting because it's quite nicely armored, to be fair. It has really weird slopes, and it's very flat as well. If somebody's shooting down on you, you don't really have any choice or any chance of bouncing rounds, but from the front sometimes you do bounce rounds occasionally, and the turret is also quite nicely armored. So this is a very difficult tank to actually engage at longer distances if it's in a hull down position. But if you can shoot the hull, you actually have very high chances of being able to penetrate it because of a lot of the armor is quite weak. Only the strongest point is 100mm thick at the front. But still, because of its small stature, it's kind of difficult sometimes to actually hit it. But if you want to hit it from the side, it's a big old target because it's actually quite long, or it just seems to be quite a long vehicle. So moving on to mobility, this tank actually has decent mobility in my opinion. You have 50 kilometers per hour top speed. This tank only weighs 28.7 tons. With the current loadout I have on, its max weight is about 30 tons. The engine is a bit underpowered, maybe 450 horsepower engine, which kind of gives you 15.68 horsepower per ton. But still, the traverse speed is pretty good, 48 degrees per second, so you can work with that. I don't think it's a very slow tank. With the additional equipment of adding a turbocharger, you can really make this tank work, and you can make it a lot faster. Concealment and spotting wise, It's a medium tank. It doesn't have the best base view range, so you have to keep an eye on that. It's 370 meters, I think. So if you want to be able to spot the targets for yourself, you probably have to add quite a couple of things. So you have to push your crew to get it to the level where you have about 400 meters view range, and maybe also utilize some sort of equipment for that. Hopefully that wasn't too long. We're gonna jump into a game and see what the STG Guard is all about, and I can tell you guys what you can do with this tank, how you can fight it, and how you can fight with it effectively. So let's jump over to the gameplay. So a bit of a change of plans. This video was supposed to be just a recording of a match that I played, and I wanted to make a review on this vehicle, but patch 1.14 has brought some really weird bugs and glitches into World of Tanks, and that also encompasses the replay feature, because the replay feature will not allow me to show the gameplay where the tank also turns its turret and where the tank is also showing like the right direction where I'm aiming. So basically the turret is in a fixed position and my aiming reticle is just all over the place. So I can't show that because it obviously wouldn't make any sense and it would just look like I was cheating and that's not what we're going to try to do here right now. So we're going to be trying it out live. This is going to be a live commentary action gameplay review. So that's going to make things a bit more difficult because I have to focus and I also have to talk about the main points of the vehicle, and then we'll have to get to the verdict. And also I have to see, maybe if the gameplay is not good enough, I have to do the entire thing again. So excuse me if I cannot really plan ahead because the replay function right now is a bit broken and I do not want to upload something that just doesn't make any sense. So it could be that with patch 1.14 I might just need to maybe be live streaming a bit more than other times, because having replays that are broken is like a really annoying thing to have, especially if we're trying to show a specific kind of thing, or else I would have to just record every single game when I'm playing World of Tanks. But I think when I have the replay feature enabled, I don't really want to have to do that, so that sucks just a little bit. Either way, yeah, let's get back to the review since this is still a review. The STG Guard, as we could already see, it's not the slowest tank. It's a very small vehicle, so the profile of this tank is not very big. That has some benefits but also some drawbacks, because obviously you're able to dodge a lot more shells than you would be able to do in other occasions, but at the same time you are also not going to be able to get over certain lines and ridges, so you're going to have a bit of an issue with, being able to hit certain targets. The thing is, with this turret being placed on the back, you actually have quite a nice little added benefit of being able to side scrape, but since your side armor is really weak with only 45 millimeters thickness, a lot of people can overmatch your armor probably at, like, let's say tier 9, maybe even tier 8, and that's one of the things that you have to get used to. Right here I'm kind of in a shooting match with Oni. The thing is, I was showing a bit too much of my hull, and since this tank is, as I already mentioned, a very low profile tank, he was just able to put 2 shells into the upper deck of my vehicle without a problem, since the angle I gave him was very nice for him to pen me, even though we were side scraping right there. So that's something you have to keep in mind. This is a tank that is quite long, at least in my opinion. I think that the turret, although it's placed at the very back, it feels like it has been made longer a little bit, but I don't think it's a big problem per se, because the gun handling, as you could see right there with the Oni, since we just pretty much took him out all by ourselves, it's really good. I really enjoy the armament that this tank has, and it's a very reliable kind of gun. we're gonna take out this T20 right there. It's also a very hard-hitting gun. We hit the Oni for 416 damage. Now, for 390, that used to be a very novice thing, but it looks like it has become the main kind of alpha damage in tier 8, even for medium tanks, and that is quite special. I still think it's a very, very cool kind of vehicle. What is really important to know, and what is really important to notice, is that the gun traverse and the turret traverse goes a full 360 degrees. That is something that the old or the non-premium Object 416 does not have. The Object 416 has a very limited amount of turn radius, or we hit him for 550, that really hurts, 450. And same with the Object, with the version 2, the tier 9, both of these tanks do not have a fully traversable turret, and that actually is quite a big letdown, especially if you have to turn your entire tank to be able to engage these guys. But that's something that you have on this vehicle, and it's a very, very novice thing, and it's a very, very nice thing to have. So it allows you to be a lot more flexible with this kind of additional feature that every other tank has, but the Soviet medium tanks don't have because of the way that they're supposed to be played. And I think, obviously, because it's all about the premium tanks in this game, it just shows you that, you know, the premiums always have a better position than the standard tanks. But right now you can see we are in a bit of a pickle because as you can see, the game is really, really close, and I have to kill this TLP-1C. This is a very important shot that we finish him off, because he would have finished us off in time. The rate of fire isn't the best. Yes, 11 seconds reload time, I think, with decent equipment, with a good crew. That's something that you do not expect of tier 8 medium tanks. You expect rapid fire, you expect good DPM, but to be fair, because you have the alpha damage, the 390 alpha, 212 millimeters of pen with the standard rounds, and 248 millimeters of pen with the APCR shells, you are going to be able to be quite competitive in a lot of scenarios still. So I think that's a very cool feature. Add that with the fact that this tank has some mobility, and also with the fact that its turret armor is actually quite decent, you have a very nice package that is, I would not say overpowered, but that could go towards the direction of being very, very powerful in the right hands, but at the same time being quite forgiving in certain scenarios when you don't really know what you're doing. You can see that I didn't really focus too much. I've managed to do 3,656 damage because I know the layout of the map, I know where to go, I know the strengths and the weaknesses of this tank. I did misplay quite a bit with that Oni, and I might just misplay it right here because I'm being a bit too aggressive. But I think the Skoda T56S is just going to shoot him, so I have the time to just flank around him and take him out while he's reloading. So yeah, 4,327 damage dealt, 5 kills. I think I couldn't have asked for a better kind of a replay. Maybe I'm selling this tank off a bit too good, because obviously you're going to be meeting tier 10 and tier 9 vehicles, and you could see that when you're not maybe paying enough attention towards the general direction where the fire is coming from, you could run into quite a bit of trouble and losing quite a lot of HP. So your average HP that you have on this tank is 1,350. That is, I'd say, about average, maybe a bit lower, maybe below average for tier 8 medium tanks. I think the other Soviet medium tanks have about 1,400, maybe 1,450. But still, I think you can work with it. The 100 millimeters of armor that you have on the hull at the front, that's only the very, very strongest point, and that's probably right here. So everything above it or below it is probably armored less thickly. So you have to keep that in mind, because that is quite an important thing to remember. Other than that, what can I say about the STG Guard? I've been playing the STG Guard more recently again, and I just thought I haven't made a review on this. this is a tank that I've enjoyed quite a lot. This is a tank that I've played 90 games. That's maybe not as many games as you would think, but for premium tanks, since I own so many premium tanks, that is quite a lot of games for me, and that means that I know this tank inside and out. I think the description of this being a sniping medium tank is it's kind of true, but maybe not as fully true as Wargaming want you to believe. I think it's more of a supportive role, that if they do not pay too much attention to you and you can just always harass them a little bit, every single hit counts and hurts the enemy opponents very, very much. So you can see the 390 alpha damage that you have is novel. That is something that's really cool. That's something you have on the IS-5. The IS-5 has 390, and the IS-5 has about the same kind of rate of fire, but the gun is never as good as the STG Guard. As you can see, the dispersion, the aim time, everything is not as good as on the Guard. Obviously, the IS-5 is a heavy tank. It has some added bonuses or benefits of having a bit of armor, but I still think the STG Guard is just... This is a really nice tank, especially if you have the right equipment. I still have like the entire equipment just for it to have the best gun handling possible, to have the best characteristics. But I think you could also put an additional turbocharger on this vehicle, and then you would have the ability to be really mobile. 55 kilometers, add some additional horsepower on top of that, and you can have a really nice tank on your hand. So I think this is an option for people that like premium medium tanks, or that like medium tanks per se, that like the heavy hitting kind of medium tanks, that maybe have played heavy tanks before and do not want to sacrifice that alpha damage. This is definitely an option for you guys. So the STG Guard, definitely a nice tank. This is a tank that I do not regret buying ever. A tank that I've really enjoyed a lot. Maybe not for the people that want high DPM and maybe the ultimate mobility, such as the AMX CDC, but I still think this is a really, really good option, a very decent choice to make a lot of credits with and to have quite a bit of fun, because you don't have to rely too much on APCR, even when you're playing against tier 9 and tier 10 tanks. Just keep in mind you're a medium tank, so you go with the mediums, and mostly you'll be fighting medium tanks or maybe lightly armored heavy tanks. So, if you know the weak spots, you can make this tank work. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. I wanted to keep it short as possible, and also get all the main points in there. But as always, comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.